Sometimes it's like you're standing in front of a mirror, but instead of seeing a reflection, you see a picture of someone else. A picture of a person you've built, the person you think you are. And you can't quite put your finger on how to describe who you really are. You can list traits and labels, but there's something deeper, something more dynamic, shifting beneath the surface. And that's where the exploration begins. Imagine for a moment I asked you to describe the character you most relate to, someone from a book or a movie. Suddenly you find it easier to draw a map of who you are. Because in that space, you're not just talking about traits or categories. You're expressing feelings, actions, energies, and experiences. Now let's dig a little deeper into this and notice how different things begin to take shape. Take a moment to think of a time when you observed someone walking into a room. Did you instantly categorize them? Was there something about them? Maybe their uniform, the way they walked, or even the way they carried themselves, that immediately put them in a box. You might have said, oh, they're a stranger, they're a construction worker. But what if you paused for a moment and instead you asked, who is this person really? How might they experience the world? And how do I fit into that story? You see, people, just like you and me, they often get placed in boxes based on what we think we know. But how accurate are those assumptions? How much do we really know about someone, beyond our own perceptions? It's like looking through a lens. Are we seeing them clearly? Are we projecting our own feelings, desires, or judgments onto them? Imagine only a handful of people noticed a difference when someone changed their appearance. That's right. 7 out of 15. And the rest didn't even recognise they were looking at someone completely different. How often do we let the assumptions shape our view of someone? What if you stepped out of that and let the person in front of you just be, without judgment? What if you could approach each encounter with curiosity, not assumption, and explore what that person might actually be? We often assume that we know how others perceive us, and we project a version of ourselves out into the world. But the real magic happens when we become congruent, when what we feel on the inside matches what we show on the outside. That's when the world begins to understand us in a way that resonates deeply. So let's ask the question, who are you? And not just, what do you think you are? But who do you really project into the world? What do others see when they look at you? And perhaps more importantly, how often do you allow yourself to be seen for your true strengths, your talents, the gifts you carry? You might think you're a problem solver, for instance, but if you ever speak up and offer your ideas, others might not see you like that at all. They might see you as someone who's quiet, reserved, maybe even meek. And the question here is, what do you want them to see? Now think about the ways you show your weakness. Do you keep them hidden, afraid of judgment? Or do you display them freely, knowing that vulnerability can be a doorway to connection? Imagine being able to make a trait that you consider a weakness, like being guarded, and instead of letting it control your interactions, you transform it into something that allows others to understand you more deeply, even as you remain authentic to yourself. This is where the fascinating interplay between nature and nurture comes in. You see, about 35 to 50% of our personality traits come from our DNA. It's like a blueprint. But just as the shape of a tree is influenced by the soil and the environment, so too are you shaped by your experiences. Who were your parents? What was your environment like? What are your friends like? What did you learn from the people who raised you? You are, in many ways, a mosaic of all of these things. But here's the part that really excites me. You can change. You can optimize who you are. You can shift where you land on the spectrum of traits, like extraversion, agreeableness, openness, and neuroticism. You see, each of us carries a unique combination of traits. But what if you could move yourself along that scale? Imagine if you're someone who's been a bit reserved or shy. How would your world shift if you allowed yourself to be more outgoing, more confident in social settings? If you lean more towards impulsiveness, what might happen if you developed a little more discipline, more structure? It's like tuning an instrument. You can adjust the strings to find a deeper, more harmonious version of yourself. Let's break it down a little. If you're someone with high extraversion, sociable, outgoing, enthusiastic, perhaps you're driven by a deep need for connection. You feel most alive when you're interacting with others, maybe even taking risks, seeking new experiences, and feeling that rush of dopamine as you dive into the unknown. You're likely someone who appreciates the energy of others, someone who seeks excitement. On the other hand, someone with low extraversion might enjoy solitude, might be more introspective. The quiet moments, that's where they recharge. They appreciate routine, find comfort in stability, and they seek peace in their own company. Each of these traits is a piece of a bigger picture. And what's exciting is you can evolve, learn, and integrate these pieces of different personality traits. Maybe you're someone who's more laid back, spontaneous, someone with low conscientiousness. You go with the flow. But what if you decide to bring more discipline into your life? A little more organisation? How would your world look if you balanced that natural ease with a little more focus on achievement? Now let's take a look at agreeableness. If you're someone who's naturally compassionate, cooperative and trusting, you might find yourself drawn to nurturing relationships. You appreciate politeness, and maybe you find yourself more attuned to the feelings of others. But what if you're someone who's more analytical, detached and direct? How might you experience the world? You'd be someone who appreciates clarity and straightforwardness. And then there's neuroticism. This is where things get a little tricky. If you're someone high in neuroticism, you might be more reactive, sensitive, and experience higher anxiety. It can feel like the world is coming at you with all of the possible what-ifs. What if you could embrace emotional stability, balance, confidence, and resilience? What if you could learn to be less reactive and more grounded? Now imagine for a moment, these traits, they're not set in stone. They're part of you, yes, but you can make a conscious choice to adjust them. Just like a sculptor shapes their masterpiece, you have the power to mould and refine who you are. By becoming aware of these traits, by understanding how they influence your behaviour and how you show up in the world, you create the space for transformation. You're not just shifting who you are, you're optimising your ability to connect with others, to thrive, to be at ease with yourself. And it's all possible, because, like you already know, everything is always changing, always evolving, always expanding. Just imagine how much more you could discover about yourself when you step outside the lens of judgment and see the spectrum of traits within you with open curiosity.